Spider-Man and technology. What you see here are two of the same thing. The Origin of the Hobgoblin in paperback and CD. So, what does the compact disc have that the graphic novel does not? Does it expand the medium? Does it make it better or worse? Or is it just as worthless as a Genesis cleaning system? Now, I had read a Spider-Man issue or two, but didn't know much about the character yet. Yeah, there was a time where I was not obsessed with Spider-Man as I am now. So, I saw this in the store, and it was the Origin of the Hobgoblin. I had no idea who the Hobgoblin was, nor had I even heard of the Green Goblin yet. But, come on, what 10-year-old isn't going to look at this and think this is awesome? These reprint the stories that were published in 1983 to 1984. However, the graphic novel itself was published in 1992, the same year that I bought it. I'm not quite sure if this is the first time it was published in graphic novel form or not, but to me it was. Now, it is here the first 8 appearances of the Hobgoblin are recorded. There's a 2-part story, followed by a 6-part story. But before we continue on to that, let's check out the history of the CD-ROMs. Now, to test the CD-ROM technology that was all the rage in America in 1994, Marvel produced 4 CD comics with 4 issues on 1 CD. They released Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Iron Man, and The Incredible Hulk. Though some other companies also tried to make comic books on CD-ROM, they were all complete and massive failures. The only time that you would see comic books on CD again would be in the year 2003, when Marvel released its massive comic collections, such as the first 500 issues of Spider-Man and Fantastic Four, though I am unsure of the sales or success of these. So, let's pop this in the CD. You can hear the Spider-Man animated theme as soon as it starts, but let's check out the intro first.
Poor, poor, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. As if it isn't bad enough that his Aunt May is ill, and he's having a problem with lovesick Betty Brant, he's also got not 1, but 2 deadly, grotesque goblins to worry about. And even when we finally get to see the Green Goblin unmasked, if you think that's the end of old Webhead's troubles, think again, 'cause here comes the most horrible, horrific supervillain of all, the hair-raising, spine-tingling Hobgoblin. Oh, we did it all for you, right here on this one great CD. So what are we waiting for? Let's go!
Alright, this comic can't possibly be bad now that that guy was so excited about it. But still, being a 10-year-old in 1994, I really don't understand this whole CD magic. So let's check out the intro on how to use it.
Here's how you get around the comic strip. By now, you must have gotten to the main menu, where you got to me, your guide. From the main menu, you have a couple of choices. Choose Intro to get a message from Stan Lee. Press Start Comic Book to start reading from the beginning. If you press Go to Page, you'll be able to type in a page number and go right to that page. If you press Trivia, you can play the trivia game. You'll also see a switch labeled VoiceOver On, Off. Switch it over to Off if you want to skip the action summaries of the pages and turn off the sound effects. Finally, the Character Bios button will take you to the biographies, where you'll get the information on all the characters in the comic. Just click on any of their faces to learn more about them. Once you're at a comic page, you use the Next button to go to the next page, and the previous button
use the
to
same
get to the
3
page
seconds
before.
over and over again?
The Zoom In and Zoom Out buttons will make the picture larger or smaller. There are 3 sizes to
Do you
check
understand?
out.
You're not
The
showing
small
me anything
size
you're
is
talking
good for
about.
seeing
I'm
the
just going to
whole
forget
page
it
at
all
a
by the
time.
time I have to do
The
it.
big size is a good size for reading, and the huge size is for great eye-popping detail. The Bios button...
Let me show you programmers something. You see this button? This explains more in 1 second than Spider-Man did in all 2 minutes. So if you have any of these discs, just skip that intro and go right to the Help menu button. You can also select the character bios for all the characters that show up. However, there's even character bios for people such as, say, Crime Master because he appears in one panel as a flashback. You'll also notice that Mary Jane is absent because she was written out of the storylines at this time.
No more suffering. No more pain.
Now, I'm going to summarize the first 2 issues that appear in both the CD-ROM and the graphic novel. Those are Amazing Spider-Man 238 and 239. Spider-Man chases a gang of car thieves and captures all of them but one. That one escapes into the sewers, but Spider-Man doesn't really know where he could be because there's so many directions to go, so he just ignores them and goes back home. This will later come back to bite him in the butt because this guy finds the Green Goblin's hideout. Now, he sells this information to some mystery man who steals all the Goblin tech and then kills the informant that showed it to him. Now, who is the Green Goblin, you ask? Well, it turns out you don't need to know. The comic will just summarize his backstory about how he was Harry Osborn's father, how he killed Gwen Stacy, and how he was impaled by his own Goblin glider, in just 2 panels. Now, these little summaries definitely made you not feel lost when you were a kid. Osborn warehouses start becoming attacked as more and more secret storage facilities start getting ransacked, with things not being stolen, but hidden rooms being found at Oscorp. Peter deduces that this is Green Goblin equipment, and is worried that his identity might be written down in one of Norman Osborn's journals. Oh, and at some point, Peter forgets to go on a date with some girl who I've never seen before and will never see again. After obtaining some equipment, the mysterious man makes a new outfit, the Hobgoblin. He fights Spider-Man in what I thought was a really interesting battle. See, the Hobgoblin has no experience as a supervillain, so he actually gets a little afraid fighting Spider-Man and has problems trying to defeat him. In fact, his one goal for a while is just trying to escape, and you see tons of his thought bubbles where it looks like Spider-Man, from his point of view, is just this monster that's trying to capture him. Now, you could even read this to show that the Hobgoblin is the protagonist instead of Spider-Man in this issue. I like the fact that Green Goblin just didn't go out and have instant knowledge about how to use all the equipment and how to fight, because that's more realistic. Most of the time, I hate how supervillains just come up out of nowhere, defeat Spider-Man in their first appearance, and that's it, and there's no explanation behind it. Hobgoblin barely escapes, and then vows to learn how Osborn created a formula that was able to make him go toe-to-toe with Spider-Man. What follows in the paper story is Amazing Spider-Man 244, 245, 250, 251, and Spectacular Spider-Man 85. Hobgoblin tests his new formula against Spider-Man and the Black Cat, who are lovers at this point, even though Spider-Man still flirts with Mary Jane, who shows back up. Anyway, Hobgoblin blackmails many rich and influential people, including J. Jonah Jameson, with the secret that he actually created the Scorpion, Wilson Fisk, with the truth that he is the Kingpin, and Harry Osborn, with the truth that his father was the Green Goblin. Now, the mystery surrounding this storyline is, who is the Hobgoblin, and how could he possibly know all this information? It all concludes with one epic battle between Spider-Man and Hobgoblin in their first climactic duel. Time to show you now how to read the CD. After reading those 2 issues, you get to see issues 39 and 40. Those involve how the Green Goblin discovered Spider-Man's secret identity and revealed himself to him in this 2-parter. However, you don't read it the way you normally would. Now, imagine you're reading Harry Potter, you're enjoying like book 4, page 237, and Harry thinks to himself, you know, this reminds me of that time when I... And then all of a sudden you have to read pages 40 through 67 of book 1 of Harry Potter. Now, doesn't that seem a little stupid? That's exactly what happens here. See, at one point in the story, Spider-Man thinks, hey, I'm going to remember the Green Goblin and exposition it for the readers. However, you can then click the panel, which will then lead you to that exact comic book. However, here's the weird thing. Not only are you being interrupted in the middle of your story to go read that, if you want to read it again later, you have to remember that you have to go to page 20, panel 4, and click on the book icon to read that whole issue. Yeah, that's not very intuitive or fun at all. I don't care that there's red outlines around every single panel that you can click on, but you know what? You still have to look for that little paper icon. And I'm here to read a book, not go on a treasure hunt. Still, with the extensive continuity that comic books have, I do wonder why no one has ever tried something like this as a special feature before in a graphic novel. Say, put in the whole story, and then put in a flashback tale that relates to something that was mentioned in that one. But don't put it in the middle of the story, or before when you have no context. Anyway, there are 2 icons that you will be seeing a lot of when going onto the CD. The first one is the ear button. If you click on this, you will then hear a sound effect. Oh my god! That was Uncle Ben just getting shot, calling out for air, and then just falling to the fucking ground!
Hey!
The annoying thing about these sound effects is some of them are very long, some like 7 seconds. See, when I want to read, I take my time, but I don't take that long. And also, these sound effects are a little non-immersive. It's just kind of, I don't know, it's a little annoying. I like how it feels like when I'm reading this that the Green Goblin's head is actually made of glass. But that's because the glass sound effect is coming from that really, really small bottle in the very bottom of the panel. Yeah, they were stretching it with these sound effects. The second icon is a TV screen. You select the TV icon, for instance, when Peter Parker is remembering what Uncle Ben told him, and then you get the entire minute summary of his origin from the animated series.
Right after I got my powers, I figured I could earn some quick bucks wrestling. I made the costume so nobody'd recognize me.
At some points, they show clips from the show, remember that only the first season has been out so far, and incorporate it into the story. Now, I thought this was pretty original, but chances are you've never seen it before, and chances are if you're even watching this video, you've never even heard of this or CD Comics before. But anyway, some of these are pretty inventive ideas because some stuff I remember from the show don't even relate to the comic, but they're able to make the visuals look like it does.
The worse for wear, but the important thing is, it's mine now. All mine, mine!
However, since these were all massive failures, this one little interesting idea would never get seen again. The closest thing we have now are Marvel's current motion comics that came out 2 years ago, such as X-Men and Thor, where the comic panels slightly move with speech bubbles, but people are actually narrating them.
Hi. It's possible that I'm late.
Quite so. This, children, is Kitty Pryde, who apparently feels the need to make a grand entrance.
I'm sorry. I was busy remembering to put on all my clothes.
It's completely different than clicking on a video and watching it just because it happens to correlate to the story. So the odds of this ever being done again are completely zero. The most annoying thing about this CD comic is that every single page has a voice narration before you read it. Every single page.
With a mighty jump born of spider strength, the web-slinger lands atop the car of his prey. Half a second later, he slips in an open window, delivering a powerful kick to the driver. As the car barrels onto a side street, Spider-Man grabs the wheel and pulls hard, swerving to avoid endangering pedestrians. One of the burglars is flung from the car and manages to escape Spider-Man.
And I'm not talking about just narration. He's telling you everything that's going to happen before you even read it. This is like your parents reading you a story from their memory while the book's in front of them, showing you the pictures, and then having you read the words that were there that they didn't read to you earlier.
Too little, too late. A sparkle blast has Peter on the ropes, and a strange weapon shaped like a ghost chokes off the oxygen from the youth's lungs.
I find this opening page hilarious because the narrator actually took the time to tell you about a small minor detail such as the Goblin ghost bomb, when most people who read this don't even notice it themselves.
Since Parker won't leave the warehouse alive, he will show his true face to the defeated wall crawler, the face of Norman Osborn.
I like to read without spoilers, and technically, this is spoiling it for you only a few seconds before you actually read it yourself. I mean, did they think that people were too stupid to read it themselves? I mean, if there was some way that you read the comic while you followed along, that would be a little different, but this is not how it was done.
Norman and Harry Osborn are reunited as they discuss the bright future ahead.
Oh, their bright future ahead, huh? Well, you know what their future has? Death, rebirth, personality changes by a different author, making clones, being clones, and being a better resolution to a major storyline than the freaking devil. One major question I had as a kid was, why these comics? This was from 1994 to 5, and had comic books from 1983 and the 1970s. Well, the reason is obvious. They only had one season of Spider-Man, and they wanted to use video clips for the comic, and Hobgoblin was featured majority of the time in the first season of the show. So, you want to know what I think? Well, I purchased this in 1995. I would not read it again until the year 2012. That should tell you everything you need to know. However, if you ever find these comics, people are still regularly selling these on eBay. they will work on all Windows versions up to Windows XP. However, they will not work on Windows 7. Now, if you'll all excuse me, I've got some Go cartoons to make on Spider-Man Cartoon Maker. So, I was at a comic book store recently, and I found that they had actually reprinted this for the year 2011 or 12. Now, it had all same 8 issues in it that I had read, but there were 3 issues in there before it that I was a little confused about. See, it looked like it had nothing to do with the Hobgoblin storylines, until I realized Roderick Kingsley was in it. Alright, let's see if you all can understand some Spider-Man continuity. See, the Hobgoblin appeared in 1983. Roderick Kingsley came out a few years before then. Hobgoblin was revealed to be Ned Leeds in 1987. You see, Roger Stern created the Hobgoblin as a new character, a Green Goblin for the 80s that Tom DeFalco had wanted him to create. It's mentioned here in the foreword. However, Stern left before he had a chance to finish the complete storyline and reveal who the Hobgoblin was. A future writer later revealed it to be Ned Leeds. Eventually, Stearns came back and created in 1997 the Hobgoblin Lives miniseries, which revealed the Hobgoblin to be Roderick Kingsley. Now, he simply stated that he dressed Ned Leeds up in Hobgoblin outfits so that he could be killed and then he could just retire. This is the same problem that the CD comic had. Irrelevant comics just produced at the beginning of it. It just makes no sense in context to have those stories with Roderick Kingsley in them first when they have nothing to do with the Hobgoblin storyline. However, the only way it would make any sense is if you created a definite graphic novel that was about 40 to 50 issues long and started with those Roderick Kingsley as well as the other people that Stearns wanted you to believe could possibly be the Hobgoblin, and then end it with the Hobgoblin Lives miniseries. Then you would have an actual giant mystery graphic novel with the Hobgoblin, and the stories in the beginning would make sense. Instead, I'll just stick with my simple story, and come on, this is a much cooler cover. Does the CD expand the medium? Does it make it better or worse? Or is this 1994 CD-ROM just as worthless as a Nintendo cleaning system? This is not a Nintendo cleaning system. Now, who is the Green Goblin, you ask? Well, it turns out you don't even need to know. In fact, they show it in one page. Anyway, what follows are many attacks on Osborn warehouses, where nothing is stolen, but secret rooms are hidden. Every single page has a voice narration with Stan Lee before you read it. Now, one of the most annoying things about this comic is that Stan Lee narrates every single page before you get to read it. I find this open hilarious, because the narrator actually took the time to describe a ghost-looking goblin. I just realized that Stan Lee didn't narrate everything. Now, so the first 3 issues are a reprint of a character that was created before the Hobgoblin was even thought of, before someone even thought to reveal it to be him. I'm so